A community torn, trying to mend the pieces.
Just lost for words.
After 9 innocent people were gunned down inside a church.
It was hurtful.
Now this man will have to answer to charges. He turned a night of prayer into a night of terror.
Just don't want to have to come to any more of these.
Just within the past 3 hours, the suspect accused in this tragic crime landed back in Charleston. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Natalie Pascarella.
And I'm Blair Miller. Police say 21-year-old Dylan Roof is responsible for that massacre inside a church in downtown Charleston, killing 9 people. People across the Carolinas have felt the impact of this violence, and tonight we have crews here in Charlotte where people are mourning the victims, in Shelby where the suspect was initially arrested, and in Charleston where the crime unfolded. Eyewitness News reporter Blake Hansen has been there in Charleston all night. Blake.
Yeah, Blair, you can see this log jam of traffic in the area right here around Emmanuel AME, the church. Some just to catch a glimpse of the memorial that is down here, but many know someone who lost their life in last night's shooting. Tonight, outside this church that reaches toward the heavens, people from every corner found themselves at the same steps.
I just come to see if it was real.
I'm feeling deep sorrow for our community.
9 ribbons for the 9 lost, read name by name earlier today. The sister of a former Mecklenburg County senator.
The first name is Cynthia Hurd.
A librarian, a high school track coach.
Reverend Sharonda Singleton.
The young.
Tywanza Sanders, 26 years of age.
And the old.
The next individual is Susie Jackson.
Today, as hundreds gather just to have a sense of unity, nobody seemed to have the words. But through everyone's theory about why it could have happened, there was an overwhelming sense that Charleston and the Carolinas are in this together.
Can't tell you how proud I am of humankind, even when someone does something as nasty as they did. But to watch the good people and citizens of this community come together as they did.
There was a vigil at a church a block away from here. A lot of people gathered at that. High schoolers also gathered at a gym at nearby Goose Creek to remember their beloved high school track coach, Sharonda Singleton. Reporting live from Charleston, Blake Hansen, Channel 9 Eyewitness News at 10.
So many people deeply hurting there tonight. Thank you, Blake. Now, here's a look at the victims killed in last night's tragic shooting. Reverend Clementa Pinckney. He was the church's primary pastor who also served as a state senator there in South Carolina. Tywanza Sanders was the youngest of the victims, killed at just 26 years old. You heard Blake talk about Sharonda Coleman Singleton, and was also a church pastor there and coach of a girls' track and field team at a high school just outside of Charleston in Goose Creek.
Reverend DePayne Middleton Doctor was also a pastor. Cynthia Hurd managed an area county library and was the sister of former Mecklenburg County Senator Malcolm Graham. Susie Jackson was 87 years old and a longtime church member. Ethel Lance and Mira Thompson and Daniel Simmons Sr. were also killed. Now, the city of Charleston has planned a prayer vigil for tomorrow to honor the 9 lives lost last night. It will be at 6 at the College of Charleston TD Arena. Several streets will be closed. City officials are asking visitors to not bring bags, though, but if they do, the bags will have to be checked. Now, on Sunday, several historic Charleston churches will stand together in remembrance of the victims. The churches will ring their bells simultaneously at 10 o'clock Sunday morning. Residents and visitors can participate too. They're encouraged to stand outside of the churches and ring personal handbells to show solidarity.
And then there are the survivors. 3 people actually survived this shooting, including a woman and 5-year-old child. An official with the Charleston NAACP spoke with the victim's family, who said she received a chilling message from the shooter. The victim said Roof told her, quote, "I'm going to spare you so you can tell them what happened." Here's a timeline of the crimes. Police say Roof joined that Bible study at Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston. They received the call about the shooting around 9 o'clock last night. Officers say he then used an ATM in South Charlotte at 5:45 this morning here, and then by 11 o'clock this morning, he was in custody out in Shelby. Channel 9 cameras caught Roof being put into the back of a patrol car there this afternoon. Eyewitness News reporter Alexa Ashwell was there. She continues our coverage from Shelby tonight. Alexa.
Blair, Natalie, this is the door Dylan Roof was walked out of here at the Shelby Police Department. It was the beginning of his process back to South Carolina, and the first time we saw him in person since investigators said he shot and killed 9 people in Charleston. The man accused of shooting and killing 9 people inside a historically black church in Charleston is now back in South Carolina less than 24 hours after the attack. Channel 9 was at the Cleveland County Airport as federal and state investigators escorted 21-year-old Dylan Roof into the plane around 6:20 this evening after he waived his extradition in court. Police stopped Roof in his Hyundai on US 74 in Shelby around 10:45 this morning after this woman recognized him while on her way to work, and officers were alerted. Outside the police department following Roof's arrest, federal and local authorities thanked her and others.
Eliminating a threat to the community as well as saving the government tens of thousands of dollars that would have taken to track this individual down.
Shortly after these remarks were made, authorities escorted the 21-year-old suspect out of the department into a nearby police cruiser. He wore a bulletproof vest, walked with his head down, said nothing, and showed little emotion. Onlookers were disturbed, left with so many questions, most just wanting to know why.
It's just unspeakable for somebody to do that in the church, and while people are worshiping, that's just unreal. You can't believe it. It's unreal.
Now, the FBI said they know there are a lot of unanswered questions in this case right now. A special agent did say they are looking into whether Roof committed a federal hate crime. That, of course, remains under investigation. Reporting live in Shelby, Alexa Ashwell, Channel 9 Eyewitness News at 10.
Exactly right, Alexa. So many still questions out there. Now, the suspect may have been planning last night's attack for as long as 6 months. Roof's roommate told ABC News Roof was, quote, big into segregation and wanted to start a civil war. On a picture posted on his Facebook page, you can see Roof wearing a jacket with the flags of the former white racist regimes of South Africa and Rhodesia. Experts say this case could last 6 months if Roof decides to plead guilty, or about 3 years if prosecutors pursue the death penalty. Since he's already been extradited to Charleston, the next step is arraignment. There in South Carolina, suspects don't enter a plea, actually. They're simply informed of the charges, and per state law, he can't receive bond. Here in a few weeks, Roof will receive a preliminary hearing unless he waives it. Then the case goes to a grand jury. The last execution there in South Carolina was in 2011.
This afternoon, Channel 9 went to the last known address of Dylan Roof in a small community right outside of Columbia. State and federal officers were outside of the home on Garners Ferry Road. That's in Eastover. It's where neighbors told us Roof lives with his mother. They told us they often saw him riding four-wheelers or walking to the gas station across the street. One woman told us, being African American, she was afraid to live next to Roof after she learned what happened.
I feel bad for the family. I feel bad for him. And it is scary. And it just lets you know that you never know where danger is.
The Roof family did not have any comment when we went to their door. If you want to help after this tragedy, the mayor of Charleston mentioned in his briefing that there's been a fund set up to support the victims' families. You can walk into any Wells Fargo to donate money. Just tell workers you want to make a contribution to the Mother Emanuel Hope Fund.
Now, one of those victims, State Senator Clementa Pinckney, is credited for standing behind several bills in the legislature. He pushed for getting body cameras for all South Carolina officers. The governor signed it into law a week ago. He called for a committee to review law enforcement practices when it comes to racial profiling. And he also sponsored a bill to increase the minimum wage for the state.
President Obama addressed the country today about the shooting in Charleston. He said he couldn't comment on the specifics of the investigation, but he did use the opportunity to push for more gun control.
We don't have all the facts, but we do know that, once again, innocent people were killed in part because someone who wanted to inflict harm had no trouble getting their hands on a gun.
The president called the deaths in Charleston, quote, senseless murders.
And South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley traveled there to Charleston this morning. She held back tears as she talked about the shooting.
We woke up today and the heart and soul of South Carolina was broken. Having said that, we are a strong and faithful state. We love our state, we love our country, most importantly, we love each other.
A tough day for so many. Now our coverage of this tragic story continues here throughout this newscast. We also have a special section at WSOCTV.com. There you will find a timeline of all the major events in this case, information on those victims we were talking about, and a list of local vigils. It's our top story on our homepage.
For the first time in 3 years, the Charlotte area hit 100 degrees. I'm tracking a few scattered storms. I'll show you which neighborhoods are seeing those cooling rains and whether all of us will catch a break anytime soon.
All right, Steve. Then our coverage continues tonight of a community torn by tragedy and the questions that still linger. The unusual behavior experts told Channel 9 they noticed about how the suspect carried out this crime.
Plus, a local florist credited with helping police track down the suspect.
Now they can start on the healing.
Her critical role ending that manhunt. Tonight, this brave woman in Shelby is being credited with helping police track down the suspect in the Charleston massacre.
She told Channel 9 it was an act of God that she saw the car, recognized it, and called for help.
I'm telling you, divine intervention. I'm telling you, God had me where I needed to be. I'm not going to tell you I wasn't afraid. I was scared.
But fear didn't get in the way of what Debbie Dills believes was meant to happen this morning. While on her way to work, she spotted a black car she recognized in Kings Mountain.
And I thought, well, that car looks familiar, but yet it wasn't somebody that I knew. It just looked familiar. And I thought, okay, no, that's not who I think it is.
The South Carolina tags made her wonder even more if the man driving was the man she'd been watching on the news. 21-year-old Dylan Roof, wanted in the mass shooting inside a Charleston church. Dills panicked and pulled off, immediately calling her boss at Frady's Florist and Gifts.
She said, what do I do? And I said, well, we're going to have to call the police. And she says, well, she said, I've done pulled off. She said, because I'm scared.
Dills decided to go back and catch up to the suspect's car.
I got right behind him, and I'm just praying that he didn't see my car the other times. And I was able to write down his tag number.
As it turns out, she was right. After her boss, Todd, got Kings Mountain police on the line, Shelby police pulled him over.
While I had all of them on the phone, I heard the sirens going, and then she started hollering and said that, they've got him.
Tonight, Dill says while she was scared, she feels today was out of her hands and hopes it will bring some peace to all those mourning the lives lost.
If it gives those people there any kind of comfort to know that they don't have to worry about that anymore, that part of it, now they can start on the healing and getting their lives back together, and God can give them the comfort they need, and He will.
Dills told me the shooting was weighing even heavier on her heart because she herself was in church last night when that massacre happened. Some other big stories that we are following at this hour. Police are now asking anybody who's got any information about a homicide in East Charlotte to give them a call. The victim has been identified as D'Angelo Dumas. Police say he was shot and killed just after 10 last night on Finchley Drive, and we're still working to find out if there are any suspects in this case. We're also following some other big stories tonight. A second suspect is charged in connection to the robberies of several Asian families across Charlotte. Charlotte-Mecklenburg police arrested Shamika Johnson. She's Stephen Johnson's wife, the first suspect charged in the crime spree. Police say they determined Shamika was involved in an armed robbery in Huntersville earlier this month. Stephen appeared in court on Tuesday on robbery charges.
Investigators say a woman will undergo a mental evaluation after they say she tried to give away a baby. Employees at Love's Truck Stop in Rowan County say the woman came in saying she wanted to make some life changes and asked them to take the baby girl. They think she meant permanently. When the employees called 911, the woman left with the baby. She showed up at Catawba College's administration building, and school officials kept them there until deputies arrived.
It's very bizarre. I have one-year-old twins myself, and I can't imagine giving them up.
Investigators say the woman and that baby were both physically okay.
Next week, the North Carolina Senate will go ahead and vote on hunting on Sundays. A bill passed by the House has very few restrictions, one of them hunting within 300 feet of a worship center. Another banning hunting before noon. North Carolina is one of 11 states that restricts hunting on Sundays.
We're not only getting hit with the heat, some areas are dealing with storm damage tonight. We have some pictures from Fort Lawn into our newsroom tonight where trees have fallen onto some homes there, cars and storage buildings. A viewer also sent us some pictures from Mount Pleasant where the storms also pushed trees over there. You can send us your pictures on Facebook and at Twitter anytime.
There are some showers lingering out there. I want to get right over to Chief Meteorologist Steve Udelson. Hey, Steve.
And yeah, nothing as strong as what we saw earlier this evening when winds gusted as high as 50 to 60 miles an hour. Right now, winds are no more than about 30 miles an hour as these showers push on through. Tracking one batch just now approaching the Catawba River. This is actually up by Lake Norman and Mountain Island Lake through Lowesville, moving toward Huntersville in the next few minutes. Paw Creek about 11:15. Looks like Concord Mills just after 11, and the Concord area about 11:35. You can see a shower right along I-85 just to the east, out 29 through Roberta Mills and Harrisburg. Just rain out of this, no more lightning. We did have some showers pushing across portions of Richmond County, Anson County, and also into northern Union County. You can see north and east of Unionville and also near Marshville. We're seeing some rain right now. The lion's share of the heaviest rain still on top of Chester County. Fort Lawn is down here, not far from Great Falls. But we are going to see more heavy rain. The risk of severe weather is gone. But boy, we've seen a lot of rain. This has been a dousing for some. 2.5 to 3 inches of rain. Eastern Chester County on into the heart of Lancaster County, just to the south of Lancaster. Temperatures still right around 80 east of the mountains, including Charlotte. We're in the low 70s up across the high country. Our futurecast overnight tonight, some low clouds mainly focused on the mountains. No risk of fog in and around the Charlotte area, so it's more sunshine and another fast warm up tomorrow. You know the drill. It's not going to change much tomorrow. Sun up a little after 6 a.m. Lower 70s at that point. Already pushing 80 degrees by 9 a.m. Our futurecast by lunchtime, I'm going to stop the timeline there. We see some showers starting to break out across the mountains and foothills, and gradually they'll make a run at the Charlotte area in time for the evening drive tomorrow. And that's probably going to be, frankly, our best shot of rain for about 5 or 6 days after that. Here's a look at our futurecast tomorrow. Again, near 80 at 9 a.m., close to 90 by lunchtime. Not quite as hot tomorrow because we'll see more cloud cover and a slightly better chance of afternoon storms. Unfortunately, tomorrow's it. As we head through the weekend and early next week, rain chances drop and temperatures rise. After a few days in the mid-90s, yeah, we're going to be pushing 100 again as we head toward the early part of next week, and Father's Day looks oppressive as well. Painful regional forecast, good chance for showers and storms in the mountains, highs around 80. I-40 corridor, we'll see highs in the lower 90s. In and around the Charlotte area, as well as south across the Midlands, we've got mid-90s with, again, scattered late-day storms. That's all I can offer you. As far as relief goes, I just don't see it. I wish I did, but temperatures warm back close to 100 by Monday and Tuesday of next week.
It's just tough, and it just continues for a while.
It is, and at 10:30 we'll have a little closer look at how this stretch of incredibly hot weather goes down in the history books.
Doesn't look like those showers have helped much.
No.
So, Steve, thanks.
Steve.
Well, just hours ago, Channel 9 was there as the NAACP in Charlotte led a prayer vigil for those victims.
Eyewitness News reporter Trish Williford was there for this emotional service, and she continues our coverage tonight from the church where it was held.
Well, more than 100 people gathered here for tonight's prayer service to cry, support one another, and hold on to their faith.
Bring the battle to your home. Destroy bigotry in your houses. Destroy bigotry in your churches. Destroy bigotry in your places of business.
Tonight, a community devastated over the killings of 9 people in a place of worship. Civil rights leaders, residents, as well as Charlotte city leaders came together to pray for the lives lost and say enough is enough.
You get up and you go for a few days and a few years and you sort of think that maybe you're through it, maybe it's over, and then something like last night happens and it makes you realize how much more we have to go.
More than 100 people came together at Little Rock AME Church in North Charlotte to pray, cry, and lean on each other while trying to make sense of this unspeakable tragedy. Jeremiah Chapman's friend, Tywanza Sanders, was one of the 9 people killed Wednesday during a prayer service at the historic Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston.
Multifaceted, multi-talented The kid could cut your hair, he could write a song.
Chapman says Sanders was loved by everyone who knew him, graduated from Allen University, and he also says the 26-year-old was planning to move to Charlotte. Through song and prayers, community leaders informed the public, despite the tragedy, the church is still sacred, safe, and a place we can all go to be healed.
That report from Trish Williford tonight. So many people with such true raw emotion with everything that's happened.
Sadness, frustration. Civil rights leaders told the crowd, of course, they should all be angry by the senseless violence in Charleston, but did tell them to remain peaceful.
Ahead tonight, the tragedy in Charleston has some local leaders questioning how to keep people safe in their churches. Their best defense, they say, doesn't include tightening their security procedures.
Then experts are going to weigh in on the mind of the suspect, why they told Channel 9 this case is so unusual. There will be a scholarship set up in memory of Muslim students who were shot and killed near UNC Chapel Hill's campus. The endowment will be for UNC dental students. Dia Barakat was a second-year dental student at the school when his wife, Yusra Abu Salah, had planned to enroll this year. The couple and Yusra's sister were shot and killed inside an apartment back in February. Authorities say a neighbor, Craig Hicks, killed them over a parking dispute.
There was a last-minute addition to an elections law bill that is now on its way to the desk of North Carolina Governor Pat McCrory. It says people without photo ID could sign an affidavit and present alternate forms of ID in order to vote. It's an exception to the 2013 voter ID law that starts next year. It isn't clear if McCrory will sign or veto the bill. Ahead tonight, we continue our coverage of the tragedy in Charleston. Channel 9 talks with experts about how someone could commit this horrible crime.
It was almost like he was trying to put them at ease.
The differences a former FBI profiler sees in this case compared to other tragedies like it.
Plus, a respected politician and pastor among the victims killed in that church Bible study. The legacy fellow lawmakers say he will leave behind.
We are feeling stunned and we're feeling deep grief.
Tonight, despite the pain and unanswered questions, tragedy at a Charleston church is now bringing people together. Police say 9 people, 6 women, 3 men, were shot and killed during a rampage last night at Emmanuel AME Church in downtown Charleston. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Blair Miller.
And I'm Natalie Pascrella. Tonight at 10:30, we have crews in Charlotte, Shelby, and Charleston, where people are mourning the victims in this massacre. I want to start with Eyewitness News reporter Blake Hansen. He is in Charleston tonight, and he spoke with some people just shocked to hear that this could even happen in their city, Blake.
And Natalie, hundreds have flooded into downtown Charleston tonight. Many who have seen Emmanuel AME Church before, but never in this way. Hundreds of people have lined the steps of the church piled high with flowers, candles, and notes left in honor of the 9 who lost their lives in last night's shooting. Among those killed, the sister of former North Carolina State Senator Malcolm Graham, a local high school track coach, and South Carolina State Senator Clementa Pinckney. Now, the average age of the victim, 56 years old. Today, the county coroner, who has been working with the families of these victims, talked about the community's efforts to get the families back on their feet.
Our job is to help them ever get to a point where they can step back into life and maybe smile a little bit.
Now, the city has already announced plans for a prayer vigil tomorrow night. That will be held at the College of Charleston TD Arena. They say they are already expecting space to be limited. Reporting live from Charleston, South Carolina, Blake Hansen, Channel 9 Eyewitness News at 10.
Blake, thank you. We know so many people will be showing up for that. The Emmanuel AME Church is an historic African-American church tracing back to 1816. White landowners burned it down in 1822. Parishioners worshipped underground until after the Civil War, and over the years, historical figures including Booker T. Washington and Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. spoke at the church.
It's right there in the heart of downtown Charleston. Now, just a few hours ago, Dylan Roof arrived back there in Charleston. He was booked into the Sheriff Al Cannon Detention Center late this evening.
Roof waived extradition and traveled from Shelby, where he was caught, back to the city where investigators say he shot and killed 9 people. We have Eyewitness News reporter Alexa Ashwell here to break down the timeline for us. Alexa.
Natalie Blair, behind me is the door Dylan Roof was escorted out of here at the Shelby Police Department. It was the beginning of his process back to South Carolina, where right now he is being held. Now, Channel 9 was at the airport in Cleveland County as federal and state investigators escorted the 21-year-old into the plane around 6:20 this evening. Now, police stopped Roof in his Hyundai on US 74 in Shelby around 10:45 this morning after this woman recognized him while on her way to work, and officers were alerted. He was arrested, and authorities later escorted the 21-year-old suspect out of the department and to a nearby police cruiser. He wore a bulletproof vest, walked with his head down, said nothing, and showed little emotion. Onlookers were very disturbed, left with so many questions, most just wanting to know why.
It's just unspeakable for somebody to do that in the church, and while people are worshiping, that's just unreal. You can't believe it. It's unreal.
That man was one of many people who surrounded this parking lot here at the Shelby Police Department, hoping to get more information. We, of course, will let you know when officials finalize charges. Reporting live in Shelby, Alexa Ashwell, Channel 9 Eyewitness News at 10.
Alexa, thank you for that new information tonight. We went through Dylan Roof's criminal background. State and county court records show he had no adult criminal history in South Carolina until March. He was arrested in Lexington County on felony drug possession charges. Right now, that case is pending. Then in April, authorities arrested him for misdemeanor trespassing in Lexington County. Just hours ago, the Charlotte NAACP led a prayer vigil to mourn the lives lost.
Eyewitness News reporter Trish Williford was there as people tried to understand this tragedy. Trish.
Well, we saw lots of tears here during tonight's prayer service as the community came together to say enough is enough. Well, civil rights leaders, as well as residents and Charlotte city leaders, gathered to reflect on the lives of the 9 people gunned down inside the historic Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston. Well, tonight, people held on to their faith and each other and wondered how this could have happened.
Just don't want to have to come to any more of these.
It was hurtful. Shedded a tear too.
And leaders told the crowd it's okay to be angry over this violence, but urged all of them to continue to pray. Reporting live from Uptown, Trish Williford, Channel 9 Eyewitness News at 10.
Trish, thank you. State Senator Clementa Pinckney's cousin says she spoke to one of the survivors. She was told the suspect spoke during the shootings.
He just said, I have to do it. He said, you rape our women and you taking over our country, and you have to go.
Johnson said the survivor told her he sat next to Senator Pinckney through the entire Bible study before he started to shoot.
The South Carolina Senate held a solemn tribute today to Senator Pinckney, the pastor killed in that massacre. Flags are at half staff outside the State House there in Columbia. And today his seat on the Senate floor is covered with black fabric. Before its scheduled session, many lawmakers spoke about the longtime public leader who served in the Senate since 2001.
Senator Pinckney was a giant of a man who took his job seriously, not only as a state senator, but as a pastor.
Several members paused to hold back tears while remembering a man who they said had an astronomically huge heart. State senators say Pinckney was a true example of what it meant to be a public servant. Pinckney also played a key role in campaigning for police. He helped push for body cameras after the deadly officer-involved shooting in North Charleston just a couple of months ago. He also helped lead a prayer vigil for Walter Scott. This amateur video showed former officer Michael Slager shooting and killing Scott as he ran away during a traffic stop.
Republican presidential candidate Jeb Bush canceled his plans to campaign in Charleston today because of the shooting. His spokesperson says Governor Bush's thoughts and prayers are with the individuals and families affected by this tragedy. And just hours before last night's shooting, Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton was in Charleston. She was talking about the importance of job training, and after the shooting, she tweeted, Heartbreaking news from Charleston. My thoughts and prayers are with you all.
The impacts of this tragedy in Charleston have touched lawmakers in Washington, D.C. as well. Shortly before noon, Speaker John Boehner expressed prayers and condolences on behalf of the U.S. House.
On behalf of the whole House, let me say how shocked and heartbroken I am by the murder of innocent churchgoers in Charleston. At times like this, the depth of our grief reveals the depth of our love and our resolve. And our prayers go out to all the victims' families. And our thoughts go to the law enforcement officers working to bring this perpetrator to justice. Anyone who would do something so unspeakable is pure evil.
Churches across the Carolinas are now taking a second look at their security following last night's shooting in Charleston.
Of course, most places of worship try to be as open to their communities as possible. And today, some local religious leaders told Eyewitness News anchor Scott Wickersham that may actually be their best defense against attacks like this.
Leaders of local religious groups and churches gathered for a luncheon today at Covenant Presbyterian Church in Dilworth with heavy hearts.
Shock and sadness.
Many were just hearing the first details of the tragic mass murder in Charleston. Mecklenburg Ministries Director Danny Trapp says while the initial reaction may be to tighten security, the opposite can be a church's best defense against acts of violence.
But if we don't become more engaged with visitors and welcoming and embracing of different people, we won't be more secure.
Still, a security plan can save lives. Mooresville police are training churches on security this summer, and they list these as the top 3 concerns for many worshipers: safety of children, their property and facilities, and dangerous individuals. To keep those dangerous people out, they suggest locking exterior doors, having surveillance cameras, and a silent holdup or panic alarm. If they had one of those in Charleston, police could have arrived while the accused killer was still talking and not shooting. In Charlotte's Hindu community, where Takur Tapiwala says fears of discrimination and violence are all too real, these dangers are a sad reality.
Do you think churches need metal detectors, locked doors, armed guards?
See, in a modern age, that is the only alternative we can see it.
Scott Wickersham, Channel 9 Eyewitness News at 10.
And police in Mooresville are holding church safety training tomorrow at 10 a.m. and then at 2 o'clock at their headquarters.
And tonight, Charleston's mayor says his city is, of course, in extraordinary pain. Mayor Joseph Riley called it a hate crime for someone to target an historically African-American church and its African-American members. He says he's not sure the shooting qualifies as terrorism, but is definitely an act of evil.
Every citizen of our city will have their heart broken by this unspeakable, hateful act of this person that didn't live here, lived 110 miles away, and why he came into this community, into this congregation, and sit in the church for 45 minutes and then pull out a gun and kill the people, I can't possibly begin to fathom.
He says he's not sure that the shooting could have been prevented, but says it's an example of why the nation needs to restrict gun access.
South Carolina Representative Mark Sanford, who is from Charleston, rushed down from Washington today. He called the shootings, quote, the work of the devil.
I don't know what was going through this kid's mind, but I know that it's certainly the act of a deranged human being. And again, this level of malice is something that I think is unfathomable in this community. In this nation. I mean, it is clearly the work of the devil.
We've been monitoring those developments in the shooting investigation all day long, and we will continue to do so for you all night long. You can find more information about the suspect and the victims at WSOCTV.com, and we will have more live coverage tomorrow on Eyewitness News Daybreak.
I'm tracking what's left of tonight's cooling showers and storms. Also, it's been quite a stretch of hot weather. I'll show you just how unusual this June heat is.
Thank you, Steve. Plus, inside the mind of a killer. Channel 9 spoke with an expert to find out what could have led the suspect to this level of violence.
It's almost like another layer of evilness, in my view.
The clues in this case that makes one expert think the suspect wants to explain why.
Channel 9 is learning new information really by the minute on the suspect, Dylan Roof.
Eyewitness News reporter Jim Bradley spoke with a former FBI agent who has interviewed some of the country's most notorious killers. Brad Garrett told Jim he believes Roof wants to talk.
It was almost like he was trying to put them at ease. It's almost like another layer of evilness, in my view, that you would do that before you gunned them down.
Brad Garrett believes Dylan Roof pieced together a hateful, racist ideology over time. The patches he wore on his jacket in this picture from the internet are from the old apartheid regime in South Africa. Whatever the source, Garrett believes the Charleston shootings were the work of a remorseless killer.
What they believe they have done is right, that they've eliminated something they believe is bad in society, that shouldn't be in society. And so it's all a good thing. Now, think about that. For you to feel that way means you can put people in categories where they're not even really human anymore.
But Dylan Roof did find a connection with the people inside, even as he killed them. And that, too, Garrett believes, offers an important window into Roof's thinking.
Is this something he wants to tell the story about?
I think he does want to tell the story. Think about what he allegedly said to the surviving victim inside the church, that he's leaving her alive so she can tell the world what happened in this room and that he did it. So that speaks volumes about his desire and need to get the word out. I'm the man, I did this, I'm proud of it, and I want the world to know it.
Jim Bradley, Channel 9 Eyewitness News at 10.
Brad Garrett says he believes if those who interrogate Roof are patient, they'll be able to get him to talk. Mass killers, he says, often can't help themselves. Tonight, there's a federal investigation into the mass shooting in Charleston to determine whether this was a hate crime. U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch called the crime barbaric.
I want everyone in Charleston and everyone who has been affected by this tragedy to know that we will do everything in our power to help heal this community and make it whole again.
Lynch said acts like this have no place in our country or in civilized society.
Some other big stories we are following tonight. The North Carolina Senate gave its final approval of its highly debated budget. The 2-year spending plan has been controversial because it cuts more than 8,000 teaching assistant positions and uses their salaries to reduce class sizes in grades 1 through 3. It also gives pay raises to the teachers with the least amount of experience. The bill now heads back to the House, which passed a very different budget last month. A 16-year-old boy who lost his arm in a shark attack in North Carolina is now out of the hospital tonight. Officials in Wilmington say Hunter Treschel was released today. The teen's left arm was amputated below his shoulder after a shark attacked him at Oak Island. That was just one of 2 attacks on Sunday. The 12-year-old girl also lost her left arm and suffered a leg injury.
A teenager is recovering tonight after being seriously injured in a watercraft accident on Lake Norman. We first told you about the accident that involved 2 jet skis in a cove near Troutman last night at 10. Witnesses say one jet ski hit the other from behind, injuring an 18-year-old man who was a passenger. The teen was flown to a hospital post, possibly with a broken leg. Officials said the accident could have been much worse if the teens hadn't been wearing their life vests.
We all know the Charlotte heat wave continues, and Medic now says it's responded to more heat exposure calls in the last week than the whole month of June last year. They've had 39 heat-related calls to 911 this week. Of course, that number will likely continue to go up. Chief Meteorologist Steve Udelson says the 90s are sticking around for a bit, right, Steve?
They are, Bill. You know, hit 100 today in Charlotte for the first time in 3 years. That didn't even take into account the humidity. Heat index topped out at 104. And this stretch of heat is almost unprecedented. 4 straight days we have hit 99 degrees or better. Last time we did that during the month of June, all the way back in 1952. In fact, it's the only time we've done that in the month of June other than this week. And again, this is the earliest stretch in the calendar year since we've been keeping records in Charlotte going back to the 1870s. Cooling showers and storms right now. This is Lake Norman and Mountain Island Lake. You see rain from Lucia and Lowesville through Mountain Island Lake. By Latta Plantation, Huntersville is about to get wet, and that rain continues to push on to the east. It's moving toward the Derita neighborhood. UNC Charlotte just after 11, Harrisburg about 11:30, Poplar, Tent, and Concord by about 11:45. Bit of a shower here south of Mount Pleasant on its way into Stanley County near Red Cross, just south of Albemarle, seeing a pretty potent shower, but it's just rain. Wingate, Marshville just got some rain. That's sliding to the east along Highway 74 into Anson County, Peachland, Polkton, as well as Marshville. Well, Wadesboro will see that rain by about 11:30 or so. South of Charlotte, still a pretty good storm in progress along and east of Highway 321 in Chester County, from Chester to I-77 to the Catawba River. Great Falls has already seen some wind damage in the Fort Lawn area, and it looks like we're about to see more heavy rain, although this one will not have near the winds of the last storm that passed through earlier this evening. Lower 70s when you get up tomorrow morning, very steamy. The air is just absolutely saturated. I mean, it is about as muggy as it gets. Hard to believe this is considered a break, but yeah, we're only going to be in the low to mid 90s tomorrow instead of the upper 90s to about 100. It will still, when you add in the humidity, feel like it's close to 100 degrees tomorrow afternoon. With that kind of heat, you're hoping for cooling storms, right? Well, our futurecasts bring some storms off the mountains by 1 o'clock and into the Charlotte area during the late afternoon and early evening tomorrow. Hopefully you'll have a chance to see some of that cooling rain. Our threat tracker, heat and humidity, again, very high. Pretty good chance of some thunder showers. In fact, probably our best chance over the last week or so. Severe weather risk tomorrow, lower than it was during the day today. And after tomorrow, that's it as far as rain goes through the weekend into next week. And as far as the weekend itself goes, mid 90s on Saturday, upper 90s on Father's Day. And I'm afraid not much in the way of cooling storms. 5-day forecast keeps us high and dry well into next week. In fact, by Monday and Tuesday, about as bad as it was today, with temperatures pushing 100 and rain chances less than 20%.
Not a lot to look forward to.
I'm afraid
really.
not. No, maybe toward the end of next week, a cool down.
Oh, wow. All right. Thanks, Steve.
A little relief. All right, Steve, thanks. Our coverage tonight continues of the tragedy in Charleston.
The outpouring of support on social media coming up next.
All day long, people from around the world have been using social media to reach out to the Charleston community.
They have left words of comfort after a suspect went into that church and killed 9 people. Eyewitness News anchor Erica Bryan has a look at what we've seen on Facebook and Twitter today. So much out there, Erica.
A lot of reaction, Natalie and Blair. So many people sharing their sadness, frustration, and their words of encouragement after this tragedy in Charleston. We saw some photos like this one taken by the AP of worshipers hugging across the street from the shooting scene. Other people sharing their thoughts and prayers on Twitter and Facebook using the hashtag #PrayForCharleston. At A.E. Simmons tweeted, "Sad for my home city, praying for victims' families, also praying for swift, relentless justice for the one responsible." And that video that we showed you earlier, seen here, of an emotional Governor Nikki Haley, that is trending right now on Twitter. She had to pause in the middle of her statements to collect herself while saying, quote, "We woke up today and the heart and soul of South Carolina was broken." Celebrities also taking to social media to leave their condolences. Musician John Legend tweeted, quote, "Charleston, my heart hurts." Really, the sentiment displayed all across social media all day long and well into tonight. We have a post on our WSOC TV Facebook page right now where you can go and leave your condolences as well. Blair, Natalie.
Oh, Erica, thanks for sharing that. We've learned here in the last few hours, Blair, that the suspect, Dylan Roof, is back in Charleston.
There's some video of him getting off the plane there. He was booked into the Sheriff Al Cannon Detention Center late this evening. Now, Roof was taken into custody in Shelby earlier today and flew out of the Shelby airport. Police also tell us that Roof used an ATM in South Charlotte before he was stopped this morning. Next for Roof, an arraignment hearing. We're still working to find out when that will be.
All 9 victims have been identified, and there were 3 survivors, but still a lot of questions here, and the main one, of course, why? Of course, we'll be monitoring this story overnight for you. We'll have a crew still there in Charleston. They'll bring the latest tomorrow morning on Eyewitness News Daybreak.
And we will continue our team coverage online as well. For the latest developments, you can go to WSOCTV.com.
Thanks so much for making Channel 9 Eyewitness News at 10 your choice for news.
We will see you back here tomorrow night. Be safe.